Do you feel like you're trying harder at your relationship than your partner is? I think you need to have a standard about where you should show up and what is reasonable to expect from your partner. And those of y'all who've been following me, I like numbers. And so I believe that in a relationship, you need to always show up between an 80 and 100%. So you don't always have to be 95 or 100 or whatever. I don't really believe anybody's 100. I think 95 is my 100 in terms of what I expect and where I try to deliver at my best. But you should expect your partner to at least show up at an 80. I regularly will have people who come up into my office and they make 80 to 100% effort in their job. They make 80 to 100% effort in their career, in the career with their children, but when it comes to marriage, they show up at a 60% effort, 40% effort, 20% effort, or worse. If you had an employee doing 60, you'd write them up and soon after fire them. You wouldn't put up with that crap. But somehow we expect our partner to. And so if you really want to have a shot at being a great partner, you need to set a standard that you're going to show up at this higher level. Now, if you're married to somebody who's making these inconsistent efforts, something you would want to consider is in seeking out the help of a therapist. And I encourage you to go with them. If you just tell your spouse to go to therapy, you're not going to really know what they're talking about and what they're being taught. So they may go up there and talk about how you're always controlling them and you're always expecting too much of them. And that therapist is going to think, that you're this controlling person who's always dominating this poor soul who's sitting in front of them. So when you go with them to the therapist gets to at least see you and see that you're not three-headed and that you're not a monster. And also you're hearing what the therapist is saying. So that way you have a way to gauge, is my spouse doing the things that the therapist has suggested? Because if you're not there, you don't know what they're suggesting, and your partner could be telling you anything, and they still keep showing up at this low level of effort. And you're thinking, okay, this is normal. Therapy is going to take a while. But if you're there, you can save yourself a lot of time with this. So that's one thing that I would encourage you to do is seek the help of, someone who specializes in relationships. And you do want somebody who's going to give you feedback. Don't just sit there and let them listen to you. You could get a good dog to do that. You want somebody who's going to give you some feedback. And, also you want to be asking yourself, or ask your partner, what has happened that has caused you to reduce your effort? What's changed? And they may point out something to you that you haven't thought of that shut them down 5 years ago. And it could have been something that you said or did that hurt their feelings, and they just locked up on you. I mean, that's a very common thing. I was talking with a couple just last week, and they reminded me of a story that happened to my wife and I early on in our relationship. I used to love to sing to my wife. Now, I'm not a very good singer. I actually sound more like a dying calf in a snowstorm. But I used to love to sing to her, like old love songs and things of this, and I would just sing them from my heart. And early on in our relationship, at some point in doing this, my wife had maybe a particularly tough day, or she was trying to fall asleep or something, and I was singing to her. And I don't remember exactly what she said, but what I heard was, will you shut up with that racket? That's what I heard. And so I thought to myself, I will never sing to you again as long as I live. And I didn't. For about 2 years, maybe even 3. I don't really remember the math on this because I didn't know I was going to be telling this story one day. But one day we were laying in bed 2 or 3 years after that incident. And my wife said to me, you never sing to me anymore. Now, I didn't snap my head in her direction, but mentally I did. And I was thinking, what? You don't remember what you said to me? But I thought to myself, instead of saying that and making that speech and setting us up to have a debate or an argument, I thought, okay, Mark, you can sit here and argue your point as to why you stopped singing, or you can start singing. And if I remember correctly, I just started singing I Think I Love You by the Partridge Family and just moved right on. Because see, I care more about my connection with my wife than I do about being right or anything else. I've debated enough in my lifetime. All I really care about is our connection. And I don't really have to be right. I'd rather be connected with my wife and have a meaningful, lasting relationship. So today's episode is about, your level of effort and your partner's level of effort. If they're not stepping it up, see if you can't push them in the right direction, because sometimes a little nudge or a little conversation can get all this going again. That's what great partners do. Thank y'all for tuning in.